Hey there, welcome to Beauty in the Pom podcast. I'm Kiani Mills.
And I'm Andy Reid.
Two friends who have a very similar set of values, but who have taken very different life paths to end up in similar situations.
We are also business owners, parents, property enthusiasts, and bloody short on time. So we bring you this podcast to shine a light on humanising business.
Because look, let's face it, business is life, and life is business.
Well, hello everybody. We're back. It's another fresh new week. I am in Melbourne, freezing my tits off. Kiani Mills has got bright sunshine behind her for those of you that can't see the clip. And I am somewhat jealous. Kiani, how are you?
I'm going to say I'm great and leave it very much at that because it is a little bit fair with the weather you guys have at the moment. So I personally am brilliant.
I'm glad you have taken the diplomatic approach to that answer, because you could have quite easily rubbed my face in it as I stare here in my office space watching the rain/hail come tumbling down my windows. That's not ideal. Anyway, team, I hope everybody's going well. Despite the fact that it's raining, cold and shit, we've got a hell of a lot to look forward to over the course of not just this episode, but what this episode is geared towards, which is looking ahead towards 2023. Yes, it is that customary episode, team, that I reckon most, if not all, podcasts have, which is the whole chat around what 2023 is we're hoping for it to bring, what it's likely to bring, and any sort of foreseeable challenges that we may face. Key, you've had a dynamic year. I'm going to classify it as dynamic. Before we look ahead, let's have a quick look in the rearview mirror. If you were to sum up 2022 in a sentence or two, how would you do it?
Oh, you've put me on the spot here. I actually haven't done my little reflective thought yet, so I'm not even prepared for anything, but I'm going to wrap it up. I guess personally, there was a hell of a lot of challenges, hell of a lot of identities that had to be removed and first of all identified, which is the scary part, but the mask had to come off in a few areas, which was pretty rough. Business-wise, though, I feel as though I've made the right moves in business. While there's been some forwards and some backwards, it's been I feel as though things are on the right path, which is really nice. I feel like the hard work is paying off. The direction is clear. All the little things that we did for the last 2 years are really starting to unravel and seeing this like flower start to flourish. So, we've had some big things with the rebrand and expanding formally through 3 states and bringing on some new people. So there's heaps of exciting stuff, but I guess at the core, it's kind of, again, always coming back to basics and revisiting and, that old hamster on a hamster wheel kind of stuff. So yeah, I think all in all, there's been some pain, but there's been some pleasure as well. So it feels quite balanced, which is nice. What about you? How's your year been?
My year has been interesting. Which is normal, as we've mentioned, that's normally my diplomatic word for a pain in the ass. I'd say interesting though in quite a pragmatic sense. Likewise, we've had relatively similar paths from a personal professional point of view. Lots of changes, loads of changes on my side in the personal side of things, which is interesting, like I said, but
right.
Growing pains, but growth. I think overall, if I was to probably sum it up in one word, I think 2022 for me has been a year for maturing. I think it's been a maturing year for me, in more ways than one. Not only personally facing up to some things that have been lurking in the background, but haven't had the balls to really tackle, and that takes a level of maturity and experience and whatnot to feel like I can tackle it. But also from a business point of view, and I've said this sort of quote once or twice and I don't even know if I stole it from someone, if I just came out of my head. I don't know. But in order to be taken seriously, I've needed to take myself seriously. And that's what I feel, especially towards the back end of this year, that's what I feel I've done. Is I've really taken myself seriously with respect to my outward perception from a brand point of view. Lots of adjustments that I wouldn't have normally taken had I not felt that I'd grown into the space that I wanted to be in, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But yeah, mature. I reckon that's the word for 2022. It's maturing, and as with all maturing processes, generally you have to go through some pain in order to in order to learn stuff. As Tom Panos says, but some of the best things come badly wrapped. And I've opened some really shitty presents, but they've been really cool. They've been really cool gifts on the inside. So yeah, it's a fascinating little year. And aside from anything else, Kit, I mean, geez, you and I have actually got to know each other a bit, which has been pretty cool.
Oh, that's definitely a positive, isn't it?
I think so. I think so.
For now, we'll see.
Yeah, jury's out. Jury's out. Let's reserve judgment until further down the track. But we've really only known each other for this year. Well, that's the first time we've properly connected, and it doesn't feel like it's just been a year, but it feels like a hell of a lot longer. I think we've been making up for lost time. But 2022's been an interesting one. I think. What's been your take on the overall sort of business landscape of 2022? What key observations do you think you've made, both with not just within your own business, but what you have sensed with all of your networking that you've been doing with other businesses, both small and large?
Yeah, I think like collectively, it's been a bit of a shit fight. We've seen a lot of industries struggle. We've seen a lot of industries come off the back of two exceptionally outstanding, abnormal years. Some industries we saw cripple and really struggle. But I think for the majority, especially being in the property space, there was a lot of abnormal spending during COVID because people didn't have the ability to travel, and online shopping was fun, but most people bought houses, which was great. So that was a really nice thing. You know, all the social elements, marketing, PR, those things went crazy. So it was a really great lead into 2022. But I think there was a real struggle and a collective feeling of pain when reality started to kick in. We had interest rate rises, we had property markets that went way over expectations start to come back in line again. And there was just, I feel as though it was a bit of a shit fight because there was so much, you know, even though we'd just been through 2 years of unknown, there was a lot of unknown, and it was unpredicted unknown that we couldn't, I mean, it is all within reason. I don't have a biased opinion that anything was unfair or unjust, but, you know, the interest rate rises, it just kind of kept going and kept going and kept going. That was really interesting. But what I have seen is a collective mental strength around it. I've seen, in most instances, a lot of resilience come out of that. And I think that is, again, off the back of 2020, 2021. You know, if we look at things like when the petrol prices went up, yes, it was uproar, but it only lasted for a few weeks and then it became the new normal. So we've, as a society, have become a little bit more resilient. You know, the lettuces up here was insane. They were like $12 a kilo for a minute and that kind of stuff. Like, there were little things that happened that I guess the media as well play into that role of trying to make it a big deal, but we are so resilient as a culture now, and, you know, off the back of what happened, I think it's a brilliant thing. But from an internal business, what I'm seeing as well is a lot of businesses are opening their eyes to a new way of doing business, which is great. And off the back of this podcast, obviously, we've had some amazing feedback. And I'm seeing more of a collective have a similar mindset to the way that we do, as opposed to the old school mentality of transactional thinking. It is now everyone's moving down the path of relationships. Everyone's moving down the path of helping each other, becoming a bit more of a collective and a community. And that's the thing that I really think from 2022 we've seen people come together instead of I guess, it became a little bit toxic over the last couple of years. So I think we're trying to find our feet. And yeah, so I guess, there were some negatives. It was, a bit shitty in the market and things like that. But I think humans are becoming a hell of a lot more considerate of others and considerate of themselves and self-aware. And yeah, there's a pretty big movement out there at the moment of the shift in consciousness around self-care and self-love, and yeah, being a little bit more kind to yourself and understanding that there are ways that we can do things a little bit more effectively and a little bit more consistently that we didn't know 3 years ago. So it's my little...
I agree with you there to a point. I think with that whole self-care, self-consideration, self-awareness, it has posed problems though in industry, especially with business owners whose staff are going through that self-care, self-awareness process. Because one thing that we can't ignore that has come through in 2022 is seemingly the shortage of staff across almost every industry. I just had this conversation only a few days ago, and I said to whoever it was I was talking to, I said, where the fuck have they all gone? It's not like the population's decreased. The people are still in the population, and small businesses, solo entrepreneurs, all those sorts of people, they're not making squillions of dollars. And yet there still appears to be in key areas within real estate, within lots of industries, there still seems to be a distinct lack of manpower, of talent in a number of critical roles and in a number of frontline roles. I mean, real estate, it's property management. There's a huge discrepancy between the demand for that skill set and the actual supply of bodies. But also you look at the likes of hospitality, for example. There's lots of restaurants and bars and stuff who had to burn a lot of relationships with staff and whatnot because they couldn't open, or they haven't opened, or whatever, or they're really struggling to get back on their feet, having really copped it as hard as they have. Subsidies getting chopped and cut and whatnot as well now for businesses. So this whole self-awareness thing, great for humans. The business side of things, we've got some real gaps now. So how do we strike this balance? Because I think there is a lot of amazing self-awareness and it's phenomenal, and I fully encourage it. But there has to be a sense of practicality at some stage. And I've already seen it. Just as we creep towards the back end, the very, very last bit of 2022, I could rattle off 2, 3, 4, 5 names off the top of my head where people have become all self-aware, and I don't want to say self-righteous, but kinda. And they've tried to do something themselves or do something for themselves, and good on them for giving it a crack. But to the detriment of what? Like, to the detriment of who? They've got a support network that they can no longer support. And that's where this is where I just want to pose. I want to play. It's almost like a devil's advocate kind of role that I want to play here, because we're all for self-awareness, but it has to be practical, surely.
Yeah. I guess from a hospitality perspective, they lost all the backpackers and all the internationals, all the students. They lost more than most other industries, I dare to say. I know the trade struggled a lot as well because there wasn't any labourers and things like that. So I feel like that's a totally different conversation. In terms of, we'll use property managers as an example, deciding to change their path and direction. I don't know. I think I have a different viewpoint on that. I feel like we've all been caught in a rat race our entire lives. Again, we go back to, living our lives on a conveyor belt of a life that we have been told that we need to live, and you must get a job, you must get an income, you must be successful. A lot of the time people fall into their roles and they just do what they have to do, being absolutely miserable. So I think I'm in the position where I'm a bit like, well, you know what? Kudos to you for realizing that you're not actually happy. There is an absolute element around there though, because you've got to support your life. You've got to make ends meet, and you've got to do the right thing. Like, you've still got to live and eat and breathe and things like that. So I guess there is taking things too far and taking things, totally to the left, where if you want to quit your job and become a gypsy, that's great, but you still got to support yourself. But at the same time, there's still, like, this is the balance. And this is, I guess, where we're talking about the humanizing of business. It's trying to find that something that lights you up, doing what you love doing, while still maintaining your ethics and your values and your core beliefs, without letting other people down or, being a shit employee. There is a balance, but it just may mean that that person's balance isn't meant to be in property management. It's meant to be in events management or whatever it might be. Like, I feel like people have had a real kind of eye-opening to be able to change their careers, because it's a little bit easier now. But I will absolutely agree with you on the backside of that, because staffing has been a huge issue. And I mean, from my very, very, very limited insight and viewpoint, I suppose, I truly believe that people just became a little bit complacent during COVID. They got paid to not work. It was easier for them to not work than it was to actually work. And when you do that for 2 years, there's got to be something in you that it takes 21 days to create a habit. These people were sitting on their asses getting paid to do nothing for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I feel like there is a real lag in the motivation around getting back into the workforce. And then also, too, on top of that, motivation to then succeed and over succeed in the workforce, because people who are getting jobs don't really want to work. And I've had that happen a couple of times in my business. I had a growth coordinator / BDM in Queensland, and she just didn't want to go out and meet people. Like, this is what you're getting paid to do, And then I was like, okay, well, let's just do some, in office or in home stuff, because we'll work from home. I was like, 100 LinkedIn contacts this day, 50 Instagram contacts this day, 20 Facebook followers this day. She went, "That's too hard. I'm not doing it." I'm like, what? So I get it. I really, but there is a disconnect mentally, I believe. But I think there's kind of, again, there's two sides to it. It's either people that are reigniting that passion inside of them and finding what they truly want to do, versus the lazy people that just don't want to work.
Absolutely. I think what it boils down to is that people, self-included, I'm putting myself in this basket, ultimately, if you want to adjust or change the direction of your life, there has to be a cost. There has to be a penance that you need to pay. In the sense, you can't expect to make big directional changes in your life and think that everything's going to stay the same. It's just going to get better. Like, life,
there's got to be collateral damage. I get it. Yeah.
Life doesn't work like that. And I think that there's been a strong naivety around this whole topic of self-awareness, in the sense of, you can't have your cake and eat it, gang. And that's what.
I don't agree with that at all.
Why?
I believe you can.
You can. Look, you can. No, ultimately you can. But in the short term, you have to buy the cake. There has to be a cost in order for you to buy said cake, for you to be able to eat it. There has to be.
Okay. I agree. No pain, no gain.
Yeah, that's great.
No, I agree eventually, but I don't agree with entering a life change with going, right, this is going to cost me dearly, but it'll be worth it in the end. It's like, well, no, it's going to be worth it in the end, and the collateral damage is worth it.
No, 100%, but it doesn't make it any less easy at the time, though, right? And I think I would much rather people go into these sorts of things eyes wide open, because if you go into it with this whole, sunshine and rainbows and candy floss and all that sort of unicorn bollocks, then you are going to end up either reneging on your commitment to changing your direction and end up going back. How many people do we know, Key, that have tried going a path and ended up reverting back to norm because it all got too hard?
Yeah. But that's the human. We give up way too easy.
Yeah, totally. That's partly why, though, because we don't even talk about the
hard shit that has to happen first. Yeah.
We don't talk about the cost. I was resisting the directional shift that I've had this year based on something that I didn't have the balls to front up to. It's taken years, man.
Yeah. And I too would assume, which we shouldn't make assumptions, agreements, but as humans, we tend to create what we think will happen next. So it's like that forward thinking of, oh, well, if I do this, then this will happen, or they will say this, or they will do this, or blah, 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 blah. And we dramatize the idea in our minds to a point where it's like the cost isn't worth it.
Yep, absolutely. And we awfulize the shit out of stuff because that's what our brain does. It's a natural defense mechanism, right? It will awfulize shit in order to prevent harm. It always goes to worst case scenario because that's what it's designed to do. It's not your brain's fault.
Protection. It's there to protect you, but sometimes it's like, would you just shut up and let me be happy?
Oh, totally. But I think, and that's probably one of my biggest lessons out of this year is you can have your cake and eat it. You can. Yes, you can. Look, I've got a little bit of icing on the side of my mouth. I'm not going to lie, but it has to. There has to be. It's like going to old school Greek mythology, right? You have to pay the guy that mans the boat on the river Styx. You have to pay your two coins in order to get across the river Styx and get into the next world, right? The underworld, and it's in every form of education. It's in every form of religion where there is a cost for going in the direction, going in the path that you are born to go down.
The fated versus the didn't.
Absolutely, and that's my I reckon now that we're talking it out, that's most definitely my biggest lesson out of 2022 is but if there is that core felt sort of conviction that you are on that right path, the cost doesn't feel significant.
And this is where I guess I might challenge that slightly because I think, and our, as I said, there have been similarities in our paths, but I know for me this year, 2022, my lesson is to feel into and listen to myself more, because where I have found myself in a pickle or in a situation, my natural instinct is to seek advice from someone else, purely coming from a place of they know more than me.
Yep.
Yet the lesson that I've learned, and I had a very, very direct conversation with a dear friend of mine who was very, very successful, and I called him and I was like, right, I need some advice. This is what I want to do with my business. This is what I want to do. This is where I'm at. What do I do next? And he's like, Kiani, I'm not even going to answer that. And I was like, come to you for advice. Like, come on, surely help me. And he's like, you don't need my advice. You know you better than anybody else. And you know your business better than anyone knows your business. You know what to do next. You just need to stop and slow, think about it, like put some proper energy into thinking about it. Stop trying to find the quick wins. You will know what to do next. And at the time I was like, that was a waste of time. It's given me nothing. This is ridiculous. But I did it. And lo and behold, what came to me over the next couple of weeks, and it wasn't instant by any means. It took time. And, what for me felt like energy that I may not have had at the time, but I just felt into what I wanted, what I needed, what was going to provide for others, and give myself the ability to kind of just be in it and think about all the options, and clarity came. And did that through really listening to myself. Whereas if I look back and I go, you know, some of the, not mistakes, but I guess deviations from the path came from me taking advice of others because that's what they would have done. Whereas for me, it's I need to be on my path for me in my purposes. That's when I know wholeheartedly and shit ends up going right when I stay on path.
Yep. My challenge wasn't listening to externals. Mine was always heart versus head.
Yeah. But it's the same. The head is
Same.
external. The heart is internal. You know, it doesn't matter whether we're taking advice from other people or listening to our ego in our head that tells us all the bad stuff because it wants us to feed on that. Like it's like a energy sucking monster inside our head that we have created.
Yes. And fuck, it's a pain in the ass, that monster sometimes. It really, really is.
It really is. And you think that your mind is there to help you. But it depends where it's coming from. If it's coming from your head, from an ego-driven space, and this isn't ego in a sense of bravado or, you know, look how great I am or cocky or anything like that. The ego is literally there to feed. And the more you feed it, the more it will become tuned into what it is that you need. And in that instance, if it is in that mindset where you're going, I know this is the right direction to do, it'll jump in and be like, but do you? Have you thought about the consequences? Have you thought about everything that's going to go wrong? Have you thought about and it starts on that spiraling journey. It's insanity how much space it can take up.
Totally. Well, we've got a whole new episode right there, I reckon, which is taming the ego, because you can use the ego can be the ego can be a tremendous asset, right? When your heart's saying, right, get right, this is what I want, this is what I need to do, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I want to do. Your ego can play positively for you and go, right, okay, cool. Well, we don't see any obstacles, we just see opportunity. And the ego piece will say, right, well, we need to do this, and this, and it'll all go bang, there's your path. And that's where the ego can be tremendously helpful, when you aren't put off your path because of the fact that you are wholly confident in your capabilities and abilities to actually just go rock it, right?
Absolutely. And as I said before, like the ego, it is there to protect you. That's what it does. You know, it's not there to hurt you. It's there to protect you. But sometimes it just goes too far in the wrong direction, and it becomes a hindrance instead of a help. But yes, I think that is an absolute totally another topic.
Totally another episode.
Sorry, were we talking about looking ahead to 2023?
Oh, well, I was about to bring it back into line as the true professional host.
Well done. Well done.
20.
This is why I keep you, Andy.
This is why she keeps me, gang. That's so 2023, Kiani. What does the world of Kiani Mills look like in 2023?
So far, it's shaping up to be pretty freaking magical, which is great. As I said, it's been a bit of a year of potholes this year, and I feel like all those potholes came to just clear the way for next year. I have no doubt there's going to be new challenges, and there's going to be new potholes, and there's going to be new things to tackle. But I'm setting up the next year for the way, if hindsight is a brilliant tool, and if there was a way that I could look at 2022 with areas of improvement, I would then suggest that I'm using those areas to set 2023 up in the way that I wish 2022 had have gone. So it's not I regret it. It's now I know what I know now. I can do things differently because I get to choose. And there's some pretty big things I'm looking up to my my vision board there that I am very excited to get the big fat red texture out and put some big giant crosses through it and achieve some of these exciting things that I've been planning for the last couple of years. So
gang,
I'm really freaking excited.
She's off to Paris, gang. She's off to fucking Paris. Don't go help too many French people. Don't go help the French.
Apparently they're a little bit, I've got to like protect my belongings and keep things close to the body.
the Parisians are, look, the French, see, oh God, this could get me into trouble, but I don't care. So me being a Pom, we have this natural disdain for French people, right? It's over history. You look at the little short one-armed man Napoleon Bonaparte and all of that sort of stuff, and it is ingrained in us Poms to not like the French. But the reality is, and if you talk to French people, there is a difference between the French and the Parisians.
Oh, okay.
Big difference between the French and the Parisians. The French are the French, right? They eat too much garlic and whatever, but they're relatively humble still. The Parisians, and I worked with a Parisian, and it was this tall guy who worked in the bar that I ran in London, and he openly admitted it, that he was an arrogant fuck. He openly admitted that he's from Paris. Yeah, so what? I'm the best. I don't care. And he was so up his own ass, but he was kind of almost comical in how much he was like that. I don't know whether we were laughing at him or with him at times.
I don't think he cared by the sounds of it.
No, he didn't give a shit. He was taller than me, so even if we did try and give him shit, it didn't get high enough for him. So.
You couldn't shout loud enough to reach.
Nah, because his head was so firmly in the clouds, literally, as well as metaphorically. So you have got to watch out for the Parisians.
Okay. I'll keep things tight and close.
But look, in all seriousness, though, team, she is off to Paris to go talk at an incredible business network event, which is a worldwide event, and it's something that purely by association, I'm literally clinging on to the coattails of Kiani at the minute, and getting glory by association, and you
love
know,
it.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
It.
So she's got Paris. You've got some really exciting things coming through with the business as well. That future growth and expansion that is just so super impressive. And for me, being able to have a front row seat to watch the whole damn thing unveil is going to be cool. It is going to be very, very inspiring, team. So make sure that you, that if you're not already, and you bloody well should be, make sure that you follow in Kiani, because, and she isn't paying me to say this, by the way.
I can though. You're doing really well.
Yeah, because she's worth following, team, purely based on the level to which, almost by accident, she can inspire people. So make damn sure that you follow her, because next year it's going to be epic for this one. And you've got a dancing comp, you've got all sorts.
I'm excited for Paris, and you're right, it's a beautiful so WIN conferences, they do global, they talk about science and economics, and they've got so many amazing topics. I'm going over to speak about women in leadership, which is naturally amazing and very much in line with what I'm doing. But oh wow, Dancing CEOs, I'm pretty excited about that one. Not only is it a fundraising effort for the women's legal services here in Queensland, it's kind of like my childhood dream coming true to dance on stage with backup dancers and go into a full competition with. There's 11 CEOs that get to dance at this gala event, and it's a big deal. There'll be thousands of people there, and we all have to fundraise. So last year they raised just over $600,000 for the women's legal services. So we're all pretty competitive this year, and we've all kind of had a bit of a huddle and put some amazing initiatives together to raise some very needed funds for this incredible cause for these beautiful women that need our support. And I guess for me, and I stood up at the launch event, and said, the reason why I want to do this so badly for the women's legal services was I didn't actually know anything like this existed when I went through my challenges. And if I had have known, it could have really helped not only me, but my children as well. So the fact that these organisations are out there and they support women in crisis and children in crisis as a consequence of that, it's such a beautiful cause to be a part of. So as soon as they asked, I was like, oh my goodness, yes, of course I'll do it. So yeah, I'm dragging your ass up to Brisbane to come and sit in the which would be good.
Yes. No, I'll be there. I'll be there with my Kiani poster. Doing the whole thing and being a fan. Being a fan, I'll be fanboying.
I've got mental images now.
What with my Kiani t-shirt on.
Little sign and
I'm gonna fucking do it now. I want to really embarrass you. I'm gonna really embarrass you. I'll actually do it. So look, she's got some epic stuff next year. There's going to be some crazy highlights. I'm looking forward to hearing what some of you guys have got planned for 2023, what you've learned or what you may have sort of taken from our stupid little conversations that you might want to bring into next year. I would love to hear some of that, actually. If any of you have learned something that you're going to take moving forward into next year, please send us a DM and let us know, because that'd be absolutely epic to be able to hear that. Just one or two things in amongst all of the stuff that we talk about might have sort of seeped in and got you looking at life for work in a different perspective. That would be phenomenal for us to be able to hear about that. But no, next year is going to be an interesting one, team. It's going to be an interesting one for evolution. It's going to be an interesting one in terms of breaking barriers and breaking old habits and adopting new habits and really embracing the changes in direction, which, as Kiani mentioned, is very apparent for plenty of people in both business land and just in terms of family and all that sort of stuff. So gang, I will end on this, Kiani. In terms of setting yourself up, when you mentioned that you haven't done your sort of reflection, whatnot, for the benefit of the gang that are listening, go through just very quickly, like the bullet point sort of process that you go through to sort of get yourself organized and calibrated and all that sort of stuff as you sort of cross over from one year to the next.
Yeah, okay. It's like uber simple. You know how when you try and make a big decision, you do a pros and cons list? Mine are like best of, worst of. Okay. So what worked and what went really well, what didn't, and then the why. Why didn't it go well and why did it go well? So look at it super practical, like really high level, like look at it overall as a year. Think of milestones. You don't have to go too depth. 5 big things that went really well, 5 big things that didn't, and why. From that why, you will be able to discover whether or not you have any control in being able to change that. If you can change it, brilliant. With the things that did work, obviously we're not looking to change it, we're looking to increase it. So the why then becomes, why did it go well? And then the actions become, how do we supercharge that, or how do we replicate that in a I guess a forward motion that becomes consistent. So it's super simple, shouldn't take too long, but it gives some really big key insights into what works and what doesn't, and then that way you can replicate that the following year.
Very simple, gang, and simple is good. So, I like simple.
Quick question. If we were looking at 2023 for you, I would, I love the fact that you said that your year last year was a year of maturity. The word I would probably put to it, from being an observer from a distance, would be courageous. I think you've made some really courageous, not decisions. It's not about the decisions. It's been about, you're right, maturity is a beautiful word for it, but it's almost like a little bit of ownership. Like you've looked, from what I've seen and experienced, especially over the last 6 months, there's been courage in looking at the way that you behave, perform, think, act. And the man that you are today is a true reflection of that courage, and something that you should be extremely proud of. And I think, you know, for those of you listening out there, you'd all agree with me that we've been able to experience that along the way and listen to the insights that come out that you almost don't expect. And I think it's a beautiful thing. So courage for me is a really big word that I would use to describe you. So if we were looking at that, I don't know if you've even sat down and thought about your goals for 2023, but do we have some top goals that we're going to look at for the next year?
I think if I was to sum it up in one sentence, it's going to be a refusal to let myself down. There will be a resolute focus, I reckon, on making sure that the only thing that I listen to is the voice. It's the voice that's deep inside, that enables me to either win or learn. I'm sick of losing.
Yeah, I love that.
Sick of losing. I'm done. And you got, look, can't really, losing's a really harsh word, but in reality it's probably what it is. I've been taking L's for the benefit of other people's wins, and I'm trying hard here to not get a little bit worked up about it, because I'm done, man. Like earlier this year, I'd gone down my brain, my mind. I had gone down a super dark path, a really dark path, and it nearly did eventuate in the ultimate cost. So if that ain't going to teach you to stop sacrificing yourself, then I don't know what will. And thankfully, luckily, I'm still here to be able to tell the tale.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very, very lucky. So,
Right.
So
For me, the whole conversation, part of the reason why we're talking about humanizing business is we get impacted from 50 million directions every single day. And sometimes we don't have the tools that we need to pull ourselves out right in that moment. But along the journey of us sharing our stories and our insights and tips and tricks, hopefully, that is the part of sharing that is, I guess, being picked up by others, and we're leaving that impact, because even you just talking about that's an incredibly honest thing to do, and a lot of people don't have the courage to do that. So I absolutely honor you for that, and thank you for it. And I guess this is why we're here. This is why we're doing what we're doing, because if we can help someone else avoid those pitfalls and those spirals, then we're going to do it.
100%. There's no point us going through this and earning these scars. And I do refer to it as earning these scars, because they are scars that you need to be, that if anybody's got some and you're hiding them, don't fucking hide them, man. Own them and be proud of them, because the reason why they are scars and not permanent fixtures is because of the fact that you've managed to cop whatever has hit you and caused you to get cut and hurt. And you've lived to tell the tale.
Survival.
Whether it is life, whether it is business, whether it is relationship, whatever the case may be, you've managed to get through the other end. It's like Winston Churchill says, you walk into a storm, keep walking, man, because it'll eventually come out the other end. You don't walk into a storm and then stay there. They're the ones that do fail. You walk into a storm, you walk out the other end, and if you do walk out the other end and you're still standing, you're still walking, you're still breathing, that's a win. That's a much deeper win than any sort of superficial award-based bullshit, right? So that's going to be my 2023, without trying to get too deep on you, gang.
Love it.
It's going to be a year where the decisions are made purely based on one person, and that sounds really selfish, but ultimately it's going to bring out the best in me, which will bring out the best in how I serve other people. And that's realistically what we all try and strive to do, but unconsciously or consciously, we make decisions that we feel are going to be all right, they're going to be good for other people, but that's only going to be a short-term fix, because the long-term struggle, the long-term problem can almost be a permanent one if you're not careful. And I'm not saying that lightly. So anyway, so gang, please reach out to us. Let us know what your 2023 is going to look like, how it's going to shape up, whether you want to. You know what? It wouldn't be a bad idea. And I don't know this. I might put a little call out here. If anybody wants to even send a little audio clip of what 2023 might look like for them, that would be tremendous. And we'd love to put a bit of a collage together, maybe, of what your 2023 is shaping up to be. We would love for you to do that, and we would dedicate an episode just to that if we get enough of you to do something along those lines. So I've just thought about that. I've just come up with that on the spot. I think that'd be amazing. So so please, gang, send us your audio clips through or your video clips, and then we'll take the audio off them. Let us know what your 2023 is going to be about, and let us know how we can help you to make 2023 a real amazing year for you and yours. So but let's call it a day there before we get to D&M, Key, because I can't stay serious for too long.
Well,
all right, team, stay safe, healthy, happy, and have a think about your 2023. Do your pros and cons and let us know what it looks like for you. Take care, stay safe. Love you, Kate.
bye.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are very grateful for your time, and we really hope that we've provided some value.
Follow us on Instagram if you've liked what you've heard, and if you have anything that you want us to talk about, things that might have been bugging you but you've not quite had the bottle to really bring it out into the open, send us a DM and we'll happily bring it to the table.